Welcome. My name is James Merkley. I'm a worship coordinator here at Res Church, and I get to lead worship for you guys every single week, and I get the honor and privilege to be able to speak for you guys tonight. Before I jump into today's message, can we just show some honor to our incredible pastors, Pastor Landon, Pastor Brooke, Pastor Connor? Yeah, let's give it up for them. I know they're not here tonight, but they are here with us in spirit. And guess what, guys? You have some of the best youth pastors in all of Colorado and all of the world. These people pour so much into you guys, and they are just some of the most exceptional human beings I get the privilege of knowing. I also want to shout out our leaders. Who's thankful for your leaders in here? Come on, guys. Yes. Let's give it up for our leaders in this place. Yeah, Hannah's over here like, come on, more. Let's give more for Hannah. Come on, guys. There we go. Hey, we have the best leaders. These people love you guys. They pray for you guys. They think about you guys. They do all this for free. Okay? Like they are not paid to do this. They do this out of the kindness and goodness of their own hearts because they love each and every one of you because you are all worth it. So let's give it up for Pastor Landon, Pastor Brooke, Pastor Connor, and our leaders. Hey, this is a fun season for Res Youth and Res Church as a whole. Who was here last week for our recording of the music video? Show of hands. Yes. Let's go, my people. Hey, that was so much fun, guys. That video should hopefully be out in the next couple weeks or so. And then if you haven't had a chance to download the song, if we could put that graphic up on screen, you can actually take out your phones right now and you can use the QR code. I don't know if it'll work from all the way in the back, but you can go to Apple Music. You can go to Spotify. This is my shameless plug, by the way. I'm sorry, I just have to. But you can go to Apple Music, Spotify, iTunes, and download the song. Show it to your friends. Hopefully this song ministers to you guys. And hopefully it's the first of many more to come because this is such a fun thing that we get to do to write songs for what God is doing, about what God is doing here at Res Youth. So we're going to get into today's message. And I've been thinking about something lately that I wanted to talk with you guys about, and I started thinking about it. It's like this concept of value and cost. Okay, so it's this concept that it usually relates to money and finances and monetary things, but I'm actually when I was thinking about this, I realized this actually has some spiritual applications as well. So when I was thinking about this, I started I'm like a word nerd. Who in here likes studying words? Just me. Cool. I'm a nerd. I'll embrace it. That's fine. But anyways, I love studying the meanings of words and the reason why we use certain words over others. I love that sort of stuff. You can call me a nerd all day. I'll own it. I'll take that as a badge of honor. It is my favorite thing. And so I was doing this word nerding out over these two words, value and cost. And I was reminded of my first job in high school. How many of you in the room have a job? Okay. All right, sweet. Yeah, a few of you. All the leaders are raising their hands. I would hope so. You're adults, But anyways, how many of you don't have a job, but you're looking for a job? You want a job. You're I got to get a job. How many in the room? All right, good number of you. All right, last but not least, how many of you don't want a job? You're not looking for a job, but your parents are hey, if you want that PS5 or you want that cell phone, you want that car, you best be going to get a job. How many of you in the room are like that? I love you guys. You guys are the honest ones because you were. That was me. That was me in high school. Okay, so I didn't want a job. I didn't want to get a job, but I went to go get a job, and I actually started. My first job was as an umpire for baseball. Yeah, it was a really fun job. I got to call balls and strikes. On a different time, on a different day, you should come up and ask me about the time I got to throw a parent out of a game. That was awesome. I was you're out of here, and they had to leave. It was the best thing. I felt so cool. I was a 15-year-old. But anyways, come ask me about that story later. But anyways, I remember working this job and earning money, right? That's what happens when you work a job, you earn money. And I remember I wanted to go spend my money at a GameStop. How many gamers do we have in the house? There we go. Oh, man. We got gamers back there. They're ready for that. So I went to this GameStop. I don't even know what game I was going to buy. I just wanted something. So I stroll up, and I go to the racks full of games, and I pick one out, and I look at the back, and I'm yeah, I can afford this. I have the I have the money for this. So I walk up to the cashier and I slap that sucker down on the counter, and the cashier's like, it's gonna be $49.50, or like whatever, like so deadpan. And I pay the dollar, I like get out my dollars, and I'm fumbling through my cash, right? And then I remember this moment as I'm like handing over the money to this cashier, and it's weird that I remember this moment. See, like in the moment then, I don't know what was happening. I didn't know what was happening, but it was like one of these moments that I remember being the first time looking back that I understood the importance, and not just the importance, but the weightiness of value and cost. We're going to talk a little bit more about that, but if you guys would just bow your heads, let's pray real quick. Invite the Lord to do his thing in this place. God, I just thank you so much for all these incredible young people who come to experience you. And Lord, I just pray that as we encounter you tonight, that you would just use my words in whatever ways you see fit. Lord, I pray that we would be reminded of how much you love us, that you paid the cost for us. We love you, Jesus. Pray all this. And everybody said, amen. All right. So let's talk about these two words, value and cost, okay? What are these two words? What do they mean? Let's create another story. This one's more fictitious, okay? This is a made-up story. But imagine yourself in the shoes of yourself when you were 5 or 6 years old, okay? Can you imagine yourself shrinking in size? And then you're like 5 and 6 years old. Imagine that right now, okay? And you're at a Target or a Walmart or some other store, and you're strolling around with your parents, and then you see the toy aisle, right? Oh my gosh, the toy aisle. That was like the best place. So you look up at your parents, you're like, Mommy, Daddy, please, can we go to the toy aisle? I just want to look at the toys. That's how we all talked that way when we were 5 or 6, right? Yeah, so you're looking at your parents, you're like, please. And your parents are like, oh, my sweet boy, my sweet girl, how could I ever say no to you? And so they're like, okay, 5 minutes. We'll go there for 5 minutes. And how many of you know that 5 minutes in kid time is like 5 years? You're like, 5 minutes, let's go. You're getting juiced about this. So you're strolling on your way to the toy aisle, and you turn the corner, and it's like all of a sudden this beam of light hits that toy aisle, and then all this angelic choir does, and you just this guy with a harp, I don't know, he comes down from heaven on a cloud, and he's like, welcome to the toy aisle, and he's just it's just this amazing magical moment as a kid, and you're just looking at all these perfectly molded plastics put together on these shelves in these glistening boxes, and you're looking at the dolls, and you're looking at the Legos, and you're looking at the action figures and the skateboards, and what is happening in that moment is you are realizing the value of something. See, those toys, before the kid walked into that aisle, those toys had no value. They were just plastic. They were just things put together, molded together, and placed on an aisle, hoping that somebody would buy them, right? It wasn't until the child walks into that aisle and looks at these things and says, I want that. I want that thing. That is the moment that the value is placed upon the item. So value, its definition from the dictionary is described as this. It says this: the regard, aka the intention that somebody puts onto something, the regard that something is held to deserve, the importance, the worth, or the usefulness of something. Okay? So that's value. Value is not inherent. Value is in the eye of the beholder, the person who says, I want that thing. That's where value comes from, okay? Let's talk about cost. Okay, let's use the same story. Let's backtrack a little bit here. Let's put ourselves now into the shoes of our parents in this story. That might be a little hard for some of us to do, but let's just pretend we're a 40 or 50-year-old adult, okay? And probably not that old, more like 30s. But anyways, your kid comes up to you and you're like, please, can we go to the toy aisle? And you're like, oh, we've been here for an hour. We really have to, oh my gosh, I don't want to do this again. Okay, 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Let's go to the toy aisle for 5 minutes. And so somberly, you're walking to the toy aisle, and you turn the corner, and you don't see any flashing light from heaven or angelic choir. You don't see a guy descending from heaven with a harp telling you, welcome to the toy aisle. All you see is this little sticker underneath all those toys with a dollar amount on it. And you go up to one of these toys and you read the sticker, you're like, huh, $60? $60? That might as well be $60,000 because I ain't paying that for some plastic. No, sir. And so you, as an adult, you're looking at one thing, and that thing is the cost. See, as an adult, that adult, your parent in that moment, where the child is seeing just the value, I want these things, I want this, I want this. The adult is actually saying, like, if I spend my money on this, my hard-earned cash that I spent 40 hours working for, if I spend it on this, I may not have it for groceries. I may not have it for bills. I may not have it for myself. Right? This is like this principle that we're talking about. See, cost is a burden. It's a weight. It's a pressure that's placed on somebody. When you have to pay a cost for something, it's something that's a big deal. Cost is defined as this: a required payment. So a payment, a price, something you have to give over or sacrifice. A required payment of an object or action before it can be acquired or done. So where am I going with this? It's probably what you're asking right now. Where am I going with this? What is the importance of value and cost to us? Well, let's take a look real quick at Scripture. If you have a physical Bible, go ahead and pull it out. If you have a digital Bible, pull that guy out too. And if you have the Bible memorized, I don't believe you. Let's open up to 1 Corinthians 10, 23 through 24. 1 Corinthians 10, 23 through 24. It's going to be up here on the screen in just a second. It says this: I have the right to do anything. These are in quotes, so Paul is quoting somebody here. I have the right to do anything, you say, but not everything is beneficial. Again, in quotes, I have the right to do anything, but not everything is constructive. No one should seek their own good, but the good of others. Okay, so let's unpack this verse a little bit. What is Paul saying here? Paul is writing to the early church, the Corinthian church. And this is a group of people that they kind of like live in this culture that's pretty promiscuous. Okay, like there's a lot of like sexual sin, like other depraved kind of sinful ways of living. And so these people are coming to know Jesus, and they're being taken out of those old ways of living into a new way of living in Jesus, right? But they're kind of retaining some of this old way of living. And they're saying, like, they're kind of justifying their way of living by saying, but wait, Christ made us free. You said that Christ set us free from sin and death. So can't we continue to live this way and just carry that into this newfound grace? And Paul's like, well, hold on. Hold on, my friends. You got to understand that even though you are free, there's still a cost to everything you do. And this is my first point. If you're taking notes tonight, my first point is this: everything, including our own actions, comes at a cost. Everything, including our actions, has a cost. Have you guys ever thrown a rock into a lake and just watched the ripple effect? And then the bigger the stone, like if you're hucking like a big boulder, it just like makes this huge splash, and then the ripple effects just carry and carry and carry until it eventually dissipates and is gone, right? See, I think the same thing happens with our decisions. There's kind of a scientific principle. It's called every action has an equal or opposite reaction, right? We've learned about this in science class. See, what happens is all of our decisions have some form of consequence. Now, consequence is not necessarily a bad thing. You can have good consequences to your actions. You can have poor ones. You can make a good decision and it has good things, and then you can make a bad decision that has bad things, right? We know this. We've been taught this since we were, hopefully since we were like 2 years old. See, this is what's interesting about these two words, value and cost. Not everything has a value, but everything has a cost. Everything has a weightiness to it. Every action has a cost. See, when we say yes to doing something, we say yes to doing something, giving something, contributing something, buying something, we're saying no at the same time to something else. When we say yes to something, we're saying no to something else. See, Paul is realizing this, and he's trying to urge the early church, like, guys, you got to understand, even though you're free in Christ, everything you do comes at a cost. So weigh that cost. Paul also talks about in Romans 6, 1 through 2, He's writing in this, and he says, "What shall we say then? Shall we go on sinning so that grace may increase? By no means. By no means. We are those who have died to sin. How can we live in it any longer?" How can we live in it any longer? See, Jesus came to this earth and he rescued us not only from sin, but he also rescued us from religion. How many of you guys know that Jesus rescued us from sin and religion? So please hear me. This is not me saying, and this is not Paul saying, that we need to live rigid, boxed-in lives where we can't have any freedom. Because that's religion. That was the past, okay? That was, and Jesus came to fulfill what was and create something new. But what Paul is saying, this something new, this freedom that you now have, is actually something you need to take incredible stewardship over. You need to take good care of it because it's weighty. Paul is saying that our actions have consequences, and we need to understand that everything we do has a cost. My second point is this. Where you place your value is where you are willing to pay the cost. Where you place your value is where you are willing to pay the cost. Sometimes, I don't know if you guys are like this, but sometimes, I don't really know sometimes where I'm placing my value, and therefore I'm paying all these costs that I'm not really even realizing in the moment, okay? For example, one of them for me is I'll be sitting at home in the evenings on my couch, and I'll just be scrolling through Instagram, scrolling through Facebook, scrolling through TikTok, whatever, and I get to the end of my feed, right? And then I put my phone down, and literally not even 5 minutes later, people, I pick that same thing up and I start scrolling again as if something new is going to happen, right? It's like when you go to the fridge and you open the fridge and you're like, man, there's nothing in here I want to eat. And then you go and you sit down and then 10 minutes later, you're like, I wonder if there's something in the fridge. It's just kind of stupidity, right? But I do this. You can call me stupid if you want. I'll take it. I'll own it. But see, what is happening in that moment is that I'm showing that I actually value something about social media, okay? I like looking at what my friends are doing. I like liking photos. I like commenting on things. I just like it, okay? There's something about it. But there's also a cost to it that I'm paying that I didn't realize, and sometimes I don't realize it in the moment. And that cost could be just being present. It's my time. If my wife's sitting on the couch with me, I'm not actually engaging with her, We're just sitting together on the couch, and I'm just doing my own thing. She's doing hers. There's a cost attached to it, right? See, there are things that we place our value in consciously. Let's take my wife, for example. I choose to love her. Okay? I choose to give everything to her. I value her so much, so I'm willing to pay whatever cost is necessary to prove to her that I love her. Okay? That means time. That means sacrifice. That means doing the dishes. That means just showing up when everybody else doesn't show up. Okay? That means words of affirmation. That means all the things that she needs, I'm going to give those to her. That's the cost of the marriage that I have to her, right? It's a weight that I bear, and she bears it for me. So there's things that we value consciously and we're willing to pay those prices. But then there's a lot of things that we don't really even know we are valuing, and we're paying a heavy price for those things. Some of these things may be addictions that you might have. Some of these things may be little vices that you use to drown out the world around you and just let yourself kind of be, feel something for once. It could be anything, but you have to understand when you place your value in that thing and you're willing to pay the cost for that thing, it could either be incredibly life-giving like Paul talks about, or it can be incredibly destructive. Andy Crouch is this guy. He wrote this book. It's called Culture Making. And in this book, he talks about the 4 ways that Christians have kind of in the past engaged with culture. And they're not really good ways. And then he describes 2 ways that are good. And I'll let you guys read the book to find out what the 2 are. But the 4 are these. They're critique, they're condemn, they're copy, and then the last one is consume. See, sometimes culture puts on a platter in front of us this feast of things to eat and partake in, right? It's like all this stuff, like social media, like Netflix. You could just go on and on and on and on. And culture's like, here you go, eat, drink, and be merry. And we as Christians, sometimes without even thinking, we take a big old spoon and we just start funneling that sucker into our mouth like on repeat, okay? But there's a problem with that. When we don't think about what we put into ourselves, into our mind, into our heart, into our spirit, it can damage us on the inside. How many of you know that junk food is really good? Yeah, right? Junk food is great. Junk food is awesome. But if you are going to eat junk food the rest of your lives, every day of your life, expect to live a short life. It will not be fun for you. I can promise you that. Your metabolism will slow down. Take my word for that, okay? Like, junk food is not the problem. But if you put your value in junk food so much so that you constantly consume it without thinking about how it's affecting you, then it becomes a problem. It comes at a cost. It comes at a cost. See, you can eat junk food in moderation. And this is what Paul is talking about. You can have moderation. You can think about what you're putting into your mind, into your life. It doesn't make the thing bad, but how much of it, that could be the problem. So what Paul is saying in this passage is be careful. Be careful. Think about what you're putting into yourself. Have a little introspection to look at your life and say, oh, man, I'm putting some nasty stuff in here. Is that really even that important? Is this really even valuable to me? This is not good. So why does this all matter? Why does value and cost matter, okay? Let's land the plane here. This is my third point. Why does this all matter? See, this all matters because God saw value in you when you had no value. When you were worthless, when you were nothing, and he was willing to pay the price, the cost, the payment for you. God saw you when you had no value, and he said, I am willing to pay the price for them. Guys, sometimes I forget that what God did for us is unbelievable. It's incredible. It's incomprehensible in so many ways. Like the people of the past, okay, the wages of sin were death, right? Sin equals death. And so the people of the past, they had to live all these rules. They had to try and follow all these rules. And they had to sacrifice these clean animals before the Lord. And hear me on this. God is not a bloodlusting God. He doesn't just want to see blood, guts, and gore. And that's why he told the people of that day to kill animals. He told them to kill an animal because the wages of sin is death. Something has to die. Because sin exists in us. Something had to die. So the people of that day, they had to try and follow the rules. They had to try and follow all the regimen. They had to kill an animal in order to be holy and pleasing before the Lord. And it wasn't working. We still fell short. So God came up with a plan. Imagine with me real quick. Have you guys ever heard of the U.S. debt? I know we're going to talk money real quick, but it's over $20 trillion. This dollar figure is so it's a word, but in terms of practicality, I can't even think through the lens of $20+ trillion. But I saw a graphic about this. Imagine, if you will, we have a stack of $1,000 bills this big, okay? Stack of dollar bills, $1,000 bills this big. And then you pile those dollar bills on top of each other, stacks upon stacks, and then they tower 3 times the size of the Statue of Liberty, and it spans over 6 city blocks in the state in New York City, okay? Imagine you're looking at these basically skyscrapers of dollars. That's the U.S. debt. Sorry to bum you out. But imagine God is strolling in and he says, hey, this one, how much? This one, how much? This one, how much? And the guy, he says, bro, do you see these stacks? That's for each of them. That's for each of them. I don't know if you have enough dollars to pay for that. I don't know if you want to pay for this. Why? Why would you spend your money on this? And God looks at these massive piles of debt, these figures, these payments, these markings on our heads, and he looks at it and says, I'll cash the check. I'll pay that. I'll pay that. And the guy's like, why? Why? Why would you pay this? Because I value them. I value them. They're my son. They're my daughter. I value them. See, we're like living rules and living in all these ways, like it wasn't getting us closer to Jesus, and so the sacrificing of animals, that wasn't getting us closer. And so God devised a plan, and he brought his son to die permanently, ending all sin and death if we choose him. Because he values you. I feel like in the house tonight, like somebody needs to hear this. You are valuable not because you do anything. Not because of something you could do, not because of something you have done, not because of something that you are, not because of your skills, not because of your looks, not because of your friend group, not because of your family. You are valuable because God says you are. Come on, yeah. The enemy wants to tell you that you are not valuable. That's going to be a lie you will face through the rest of your lives. Be reminded of what God did for you. He sent his son for you. There's another response, though, to this that I think sometimes we can miss. And this is what Paul is talking about to the early church, okay? And it's the cost that we pay to choose Jesus. See, Jesus didn't play around when people came to him and he healed them and he brought their ailments to an end. And then they were like, what now? And he's like, okay, it's time to follow me. Go and sin no more. He said this multiple times. In the Bible, it says that we are to take up our cross. We're to take up this thing that represents death to ourselves. We're supposed to take that thing up daily and follow him. That's a cost, my friends. Jesus himself said that some will leave their mothers and fathers for me. Your very family. He's saying, and what he's saying is that you don't have to leave your family, but am I more important than them? Am I more important than your job? Am I important than your friends? Am I more important than your sports? Am I more important than your academics? Am I more important to you than anything else? Sometimes God asks us for things. Sometimes he asks us to stop doing things. Sometimes he asks us to start doing things. Sometimes he asks us for things, like for us to dedicate something to him. Why? Why? I can promise you this. God is not a narcissistic God that just wants all that you have. He has everything. He doesn't need what you have. So why does he do that? He's after you. See, he saw you on that shelf and you had no value, and he said, I value that one so much so that I'm willing to give everything for that one. All I ask for in return is that they give everything for me. That they turn from their old ways and they choose a relationship with me that will last in eternity. So tonight I ask you, what are you willing to give over to God? This can be anything, guys. This can be monetary. This can be like a sacrifice. Maybe you're sleeping around with your boyfriend or girlfriend. Maybe you're doing drugs. Maybe you're doing something that's not healthy and you need to give that up. Maybe you need to stop being prideful in yourself and you need to start trusting in God more. Maybe you need to actually give something up, like you're listening to too much music that's just bad for you, or watching too many shows that are bad for you, playing too many video games. Maybe there's something. I'll take it even a step further. Maybe it's your sexual orientation. I have a friend. His name is Kevin, and he was one of my worship guys at my last church. And he comes up to me. I did all these stories, video stories, like almost like little biographies of people's testimonies and things like that. And he comes up to me. He's like, James, I think I want to tell my story. I'm like, okay, yeah, dude, let's do it. Let's go. What's it about? And he proceeds to tell me that his whole life, he struggled with same-sex attraction. His whole life. This is a married man with 3 girls. He loves his wife. He loves his girls. And yet he's telling me, James, I struggle with wanting other men. So I asked some questions. I'm like, okay, so talk to me about this. Why, like, that must be hard for you? Like, tell me a little bit more about it. And it came down to this. It came down to this point. Kevin realized early on in his life, he had this attraction, he had these wants, these desires, these dreams or whatever. And he said, but Jesus is more important than that. And if he tells me to follow him this way and leave those things behind, even my own sexual orientation, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it because he did it first for me. He laid down everything first for me so that I can follow him. He gave it all for me so that I could come to know him. And so why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't I do it for him? See, there's this picture. Sometimes we think when God's asking for stuff from us that he's just being cruel or mean or demanding. Guys, that's not who he is. There's this picture of, it's like a painting, and there's this little girl holding this teddy bear. And the father is standing in front of her, and he's holding out his hand like asking for the bear. And this little girl, you can see in the photo, she's like, I don't want to, this is my bear. I don't want to give this to you. I don't want to give you this bear. But behind the father's back, in his hand, what the girl doesn't realize is there's this massive teddy bear, new, fresh, amazing, and he's ready to give it to her, but he can't give it to her when her hands are full of that thing, that old teddy bear. And I think this is a picture of how God operates with us. Guys, he is not going to ask you for something that he's not going to replace with further blessing and goodness that he bestows upon you. If he's asking for you for something, he is going to give you something more immeasurably blessing to you than the thing that you're holding on to. Whether that be a sin, whether that be a person, whether that be a thing, whether that be a dream. God's not going to ask for those things and be like, okay, peace out, see ya. No. He's going to give you more than you could have ever imagined because you gave that to him in response. This is the cost of relationship with Christ, guys. Slowly, piece by piece, giving ourselves to Jesus and saying, I value you more than this thing. We take a step forward. I value you more than this thing. And we take a step forward. That's what this walk with Jesus looks like.